do not shut up and dribble.
The champ is here. I must be the greatest. The champ is here.
I'm going to continue to stand with the people.
The champ is here.
I will not lose.
I'm a bad man. I took up the road.
Yes, welcome. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with we. My name is EJ, and I got my man.
MH
Is the DB of the show, and we are Black in Sports, giving a voice to the culture that won't shut up and dribble. Here, interviewing the best professionals in the game and in the boardroom, covering it all, laughing at it all, while providing a platform to be heard. So, you know, it's been a while. We've been doing a lot of locker rooms, man. So we're getting back to our interviews, man. So without further ado, man, you know, we got to welcome our guests. So don't wait. Create generational impact today. Hey, this is a tagline from our two-time author, podcaster, coach, speaker, and you know what? He is helping others to rise to win. All right. So he is player development, right? You know, just period. He is player development. Please clap it up for Edward Jones, the second, number 2.
Thank you. Yes, number 2. That always makes me for the second.
Yeah, so I'm a second as well, man. So I definitely understand making sure we get that moniker in there. So Ed, how we like to start the show, it's imperative, man. It's just if you could give us a shoot your shot moment. All right. So this is where, you know, you could have shot your shot anytime in life. It could have been high school days, college days. It could have been as recent, you know, as a week ago or, you know, today. But just give us a quick shoot your shot moment, win or loss.
Yeah, I'll shoot a shot. I actually talked about it in a podcast. I put it on LinkedIn, but I was in a coffee shop, and Bo Porter was the manager of the Astros at the time. Bo Porter was a black manager, Astros, and I just, I saw him, I'm like, oh snap, that's Bo Porter, and I'm sitting there, and I'm with my homegirl from high school, and I'm like, she's like, go ask him a question. I'm like, no, I ain't gonna ask him a question. He a manager, he busy, he just coming in to get coffee and get out. Man, that was the longest cup of Joe ever. So I finally went up to him. I was like, hey, coach, it's hard for me not to call a baseball manager coach because playing football, but I was like, Mr. Porter, what's one thing that at the time I wanted to be a head coach? So what's one thing you can tell me as a head coach? He looked me dead in my eyes and like, take my number down, meet me here next week. I was like, oh snap. So got to meet him. He invited me to a lot of different parties and just functions with his people, his close people. The crazy thing about that, as much as I shot my shot with him in person, I never ever shot my shot for tickets to the game. Never. I was the scariest thing. I literally would type, hey, I know it's the day of, or you got a game tomorrow. Can I get tickets? And I always deleted it. Even though I shot my shot to meet him, I never shot my shot to get tickets. I don't know if he knows that, but it's like one of the man, who knows how many people I've met. He's the guy. He's the manager of the Stros, and I never asked for tickets. So
he don't know now.
Yeah. Man, that art of the one question. I know I listened to a couple of your pods, man. So you talked about that, and that's amazing how much info you just got from that one question. How strategic it was. That's dope. Where did your love for sports start?
When I was young, grew up in a family. It was five of us, brothers and sisters. My dad was a basketball player. My mom ran track, and then just in the neighborhood I grew up in, we didn't have video games, so my biggest thing was running down. If you can't believe it or not, I was the fastest kid in the neighborhood for a while until I found out about video games. We would just run up and down the street, and then at school we had a basketball park. The pool was around the corner, the swing set, just everything, baseball cage, everything was around the corner at the local elementary school. And so that's what we did. Our parents had us in that. And I fell in love with the games, but I just fell in love with when I watch games, I would watch the sidelines. I would watch the temperament of the refs. I knew when fights were going to break out. Always like that. All that kind of just got me. But I fell in love with the numbers of it too. It got to a point where my dad would bring me in. He'd be like, hey, come here. How many assists did Michael Jordan have in 1988? I'd be like, he had 3.5 assists. He went up to about 4.6 the next season. And then I just knew everything. They called me the walking basketball card. But I just fell in love with sports because it was just so many pieces made one thing go right. You know, you couldn't just do it by yourself. And growing up in a family at 5, it was kind of the same thing I grew up in. For us to have fun, we all had to do it together. And so sports kind of reminded me of growing up.
So really quick, did you know, since you said you look at the kind of like the view of the players, did you know the Malice in the Palace was going to happen?
So crazy story. For some reason, they say it was 2004, but it was my freshman year. And I literally got from eating dinner or something. I turn on TV and I'm like, man, I'm watching it. And I'm like, man, it's kind of it's a little heated. Like, you know, just a different heat. That shove from Ben Wallace was like a shove. So I'm like, I mean, that was an old school Rick Mahorn, you know, Charles Oakley, first 3 year shove, you
Back to
know,
the bad boy days type.
Street
Yeah.
Fighter, that Ryu.
Yeah. And I
Oh,
just- yeah, and it was too peaceful after that shove. It was too peaceful.
Gotcha.
And I remember like him going, like once I saw the cup, I watched it live. I was like, oh snap. Like I knew, like I didn't see what made it happen, but I was like, something had to happen because it was too calm. And I remember thinking to myself, like, whoa, that just happened. And then seeing old buddy get slid on the court by Jermaine O'Neal when he walked up on Jermaine O'Neal, I was like, man, what was he thinking, man? This dude you talking about guys with like 8 foot wingspans, man. Like they could hit you and be on the other side of the room, man. So yeah, it was kind of crazy seeing that happen.
I was definitely one of those, like, you remember where you were when that happened moments. I was in the dorm room the same time. It was my freshman year. Like, yo, is this really going on?
Yeah, it was like, I remember sitting there like, nah, this can't be like, because you know they had some of the like reality TV. I'm like, nah, this game is live. Like this is happening. Like, you know, yeah, it was crazy.
Sure. So was it basketball initially that you kind of like gravitated to, or was it football, or what was the number one sport?
It was basketball. I love basketball at the time. Right when I started loving basketball, the Rockets won the first of the 2 championships. I just remember my parents screaming in the living room. I was back there playing with toys. I remember them screaming, "We did it! We did it! We did it!" And like, I'm like, "What happened?" My dad was like, "The Rockets won the championship. We're the best!" Like, you know. And then the next year, I just like dove into like basketball. My dad was like, he used to get mad at me about it. I always watch ESPN Classic. That was my favorite channel. But he had all these old school magazines. I would just read them. Like I just memorized. So like any trivia from like 1940s NBA to 90, I just know. Like for people be like Rochester, I was driving to Rochester one time, and like this Uber driver was like, "Yeah, y'all had the Rochester, you know, Royal." Like he was like, "Wait, you knew about?" I was like, "Yeah." So anyway, that's when it grew, and then like I started hooping. I was really good, but I started getting bigger than people. My first experience with football was my brother. He's 7 years older. He gave me some pads, and we were in the front yard. And he was like, "Hey man, go run!" And I remember running and just hearing this wind. I was like, "Where's this wind?" Like, you know, like I didn't realize the wind was coming in the helmet. And while I'm sitting there trying to figure out where this sound is coming from, this dude lit me up, and I was like, "Nah, this ain't for me." So I stuck with basketball. But then my best friend in 6th grade, his dad was a local coach on a little league team, and I went to play basketball. And it was just easy to me. They were just like, "Go tackle that person," and I was like, "Okay." It's just like tackling the guys. I didn't know nothing about like teammates.
That one-on-one drill is gonna take a lot of people push them back into basketball.
Man. Look, I almost went back because they messed it up. I didn't realize I was bigger than most kids. You just don't know until you look at a picture like, dang, I was bigger than people. And they put me with a kid who's, man, when he hit me, that's like still to this day one of the hardest hits I ever take. I felt like I got hit by a truck. And then we went again and he hit me again. And like for a week, his face mask was like, he had a metal face mask. It was literally on my arm like I had a tattoo. And found out his dad played in the NFL. I was like, man, why this dude so strong and flexible? I was like, genetics. That's when you find out about genetics. And as time went on, they always made me go against him because we ended up being the 2 best players. And I finally got up to his level. Once I saw other teams, I said, man, other teams hitting him like this, and we all scared of him. He must not be all that. But yeah, that first, I almost walked away, but I'm glad I stuck with it. But one of the regrets is I wish I would have stuck with basketball. My sister, she was a legit elite basketball player. She had like 25-something scholarships her junior year. She always told me, she's like, why didn't you play basketball? I was just like, I woke up late for the basketball trial, 7th grade, and I was like, man, I don't feel like running. I know if I walk in there, they're going to make me run, and I don't want to do it. So it was basketball, and then it went to football.
Too Tall Jones. I mean, in Texas, I know somebody referred to it. How many of those references did you get?
It's on my Letterman jacket, and every time I say Ed Jones, and being in Texas, it's too easy. Too Tall Jones, and I'm like 6'2". People don't realize he's like 6'9". I'm 6'2", and they'll be like, yeah, people just like too tall. I'm just like, so I stuck with it. I wasn't gonna shake, right? I couldn't run away from it. So it's on my Letterman jacket, actually. So yeah.
So you got that, and then I mean, what's the other moniker, man? I mean, you type Edward Jones in, man. I think you're gonna help me with some financial, some savings, some loan categories, and some shit like that.
that's the other one, right? So when I worked at Kansas, our AD Jeff Long, he would always say, And for finances, Ed Jones gonna take care of it. It's like a lot of people, whenever I write down Ed Jones, they kind of look like, Edward Jones like that. I'm like, trust me, y'all, I wouldn't be here if I had the money. Funny thing about that, it was coming out of my senior year, I went to the Edward Jones career booth, and they were like, "Hi, we're Edward Jones." I was like, "Hi, I'm Edward Jones." And they're like, "No, we're Edward Jones." I was like, "No, I'm Edward Jones."
Who's on
so
first?
They wanted to connect. Yeah. So it was. I get that. Those two I get a lot. Ed Jones. The one I don't like, I hear a lot, and parents do it, is they're like, "Mr. Ed." I'm like, "Nah, don't just call me."
Nah.
Yeah, just call me Ed. I'm good. Like, don't or call me Mr. Jones. And Mr. Ed is just. And I had my teeth were this size literally since third grade, so it was too easy. Like people were like, "Yeah." So I just that's the one I'm like. That's the one I'm like, bro, y'all can't. I can't. I do not like that. I will tell people like, don't call me that, please. So. Yeah.
So if you didn't pick up, you were Houston representative. All right. So we kind of talked about, we haven't really delved in, but you were born in Houston and then kind of just growing up in Houston, man. It just seems like Houston is synonymous with either great football players or track stars. Like y'all just have to be fucking fast if you're in Houston for some reason. So, you talked about the love for basketball, you talked about a little football, but you also ran a little track. So the next question we always ask on this show is, what were the races? What did you compete in track?
So track, as I got bigger, so this is what I was. So my first time doing track was in high school, and because I wanted to do golf, because they said we had to pick a second sport, and I was like, man, I'm gonna go pick golf because I didn't want to run. And my defensive coordinator was like, you going track, you're not doing golf. So I was like, dang it. So anyway, I missed the throwers leaving at some point. So I'm out here running, and I'm like, bro, like what are we like? Man, I'm running 100. We running 200s. We 80s, 40s, 60s, and I'm keeping up. I'm actually doing pretty well for like a D lineman. And I wish I would have stayed. Part of me wishes I would have just stayed, but I found out where the throwers were. But throwing, I was pretty good. I got to about 50 in shot put and about 155 in discus. I was pretty good at that. But I don't know what it is, man, about Texas. Like, man, it's crazy, man. The neighborhood I grew up in, it's just like, man, that school's always like legit will always be loaded. That school will never ever. There are certain schools you're like, that was a class, or like, nah, that school will always have players, So it was just tough. Like it was tough playing there, man. Like you wanted to transfer, you're like, man, the two dudes in front of me were sophomores. They're a year ahead of me. The defensive tackle in front of me, he played defensive line. He ran a 4.4. He was the anchor leg of the 4x1 team. So he would make a play. I would come in after him. They'd be like, John, like, look, hold on, coach. Nah, he different. Like, I can't make he shouldn't be playing D-line, first of all. But he is, like, that dude's a freak, right? I can't make that play, coach. Y'all should know I'm fighting double teams, and anything within these two gaps I can get. Anything outside of that ain't gonna happen. But those are my track times. I will say this though. In the big man relay, which I don't know if they do it in other states, big man relay.
Yeah, come on. Shout out to big man relay. Let's go. Talk about it.
Big man relay, this is my shining moment. It got me in trouble. But so the school cheated. I'm going to call them out. I was at Hightower High School, Thurgood Marshall. They had a thrower, but dude was like D-line nose guard. He was like an outside line. Like he was a slim linebacker, but he was a thrower. So he fit in the big man relay, but he actually ran in the relay. So I'm like, he got the track spikes on or whatever, right? So I'm like, man, whatever, bro. Like, and I'm telling my guy falls down, and I'm looking at him like, bro, just give me the stick. You know how it is. Give me the stick. He gets me the stick, and old buddy can't catch me. So I'm booking it. I'm hitting the curve. I'm leaning. They tell you to lean. I'm getting out of there, right? So I hand it off to my homeboy. He takes off. Our D-line coach is the head track coach. We both play D-line. And so he was like, that's a great job, guys. But guess what, now? I know y'all coasting when we run sprints.
Got him.
Guy got us because I was running like it was no tomorrow, man. And I was shocked I beat the dude. Like we ended up losing because they had a sprinter at the end, but we were neck and neck. But I'm telling me and my homeboy, we was on the bus ride back to school. Like, dang, bro, we probably shouldn't have ran that fast, bro.
Yeah, that's dead giveaway, man. Those big man relays, somebody got spikes on, man. You cheating, bro.
Oh yeah, man. I was like, yeah, you got to be 250 and above. Like they got to come with like a weight limit or something, man. Like you got to have like your shirt got to be a 2X or bigger.
Well, 2X back then, that was no. I was trying to squeeze it to a 2X.
That's very true. That's very true. I should have said 3, or you should have. Let me say this. This would have got the big dude. Your bottom tracks drawstring should be able to pull out about 3 feet. That's when you knew you was big. You had that drawstring that you could wrap around. That's when they should have cut people out. I had that drawstring that they used to be wrapping around, man. So that's when they should have cut it right there. We'd have been all good.
Love it. So continuing Houston, man. So you went to HU, so you're a Cougar. What made you choose that, man? Was it just staying home? Is it just kind of, you were used to seeing Clyde to Glide and what they were doing in that time? Like, what made you choose to go to HU?
The funny thing about going to University of Houston was, and I would be wrong if I didn't correct, is UH.
Oh, that's fine, 100%. I messed up a lot of things.
You good. It's weird because when I worked at KU, it's actually University of Kansas, but they flip it. So there's a lot of universities do it. But anyway, so my parents went to U of H, and I was really big on, like, I don't want to do nothing my parents did. So I spun a globe in 8th grade and was like, I spun it and I stopped, and it stopped on Wisconsin. So I was like, I'm going to Wisconsin. But being from Houston, you never touch snow, right? So I was like, okay, I had a couple of trips. I had an opportunity to play like Division III, Division II football, but I knew I wanted to work in sports, and U of H was the only school with a sports administration program that was part of it. But I went on a trip to Baylor, and I remember thinking to myself, like, whoo, man, this is where we at? Hey, I don't smell no curve, no cocoa butter, man. They don't smell like none of that. I felt like, and we went in the auditorium, I felt like a chocolate chip in a 2-gallon jug of milk. And I was like, bro, I can't do this. Like, I can't. Like, everywhere in Houston, if you've ever been to Houston, Houston's super diverse. So I've been around everybody my entire life. So when we went back to University of Houston, that was my last trip. And it was what I was used to. It was people everywhere, everybody, every ethnicity, man. I smelled that cocoa butter, man. I'm smelling tahini. I'm smelling everything, man. So it was really good. That's why I picked it, but mostly because sports administration program. Every other school is like, you could study business and then get in sports. But I just, like I told you earlier, I was a sports nerd. So I wanted to study the business of sport with sports. So that's what went down to U of H, and it didn't hurt that it was 30 minutes from the crib. So
there you go.
So did you start with, like, we'll get more into this, but the business of sports, or I feel like a lot of people, when they want to get into sports, it's like journalism right away. Like, hey, I want to be a kind of sportscaster. But was that business administration kind of your focus right off the bat?
Yeah. So I thought I wanted to be a sports agent because I just like helping athletes. And that kind of started when I was in high school. I was one of the guys who I was gifted athletically. I'm not going to sit here. I could have done a better job of stewarding those gifts. But I realized, like I said, the guy that had a 4.4, there were a lot of people that had some genetics that I didn't. So I really, really helped my teammates learn stuff. And I just like, man, this is pretty cool helping athletes learn, even my teammates, so they can do better. So I wanted to be a sports agent. But they said, how much sports agents spend away from their family? I was like, nah. So then I did marketing, my minor. So I did sports administration with a minor in marketing. I did that. That was pretty cool. But that was kind of focused at the beginning with sports agent. And then, of course, you're like, I want to be athletic director. And as you get in and learn more positions, you want to do that. But my whole goal is I got to find a spot where I'm impacting people. So it started kind of with the business towards the end with marketing, sports marketing. So, yeah.
And can you say the values of, you said nose tackle early, and that's a very unselfish, a lot of sacrifice, don't hear your name a whole lot. You think some of those core values and just playing that position helped you kind of in that way of life and then getting into the sports business?
Yeah, so it did. I got a story. We used to do, y'all know what loafs are, right? Mm-hmm. So we would do scrimmages with these loafs, and I'll never forget, man, like we went in the locker room and all varsity, we all normally had black jerseys, and it was like me and 3 other guys had black jerseys and switched everybody to green on defense. So I'm like, bro, what happened? So we go do our loafs, man. We got 86 up downs, 86. And I'm like, man, like, and so they say Ed Jones, I'm the nose guard. I'm the big dude. I'm fighting double teams every play. Like I'm trying to, the center we had is literally the best player I've ever played against. He was 2-time All-State. Like, dude was legit. And I'm fighting like, you got to give 100% to go against him so he don't get to the middle linebacker. So we ran a 3-4. So I had a Mike backer right here, a Will backer right here. So I'm trying to fight him so he can't get to him. I'll stop because I'll get into too much coaching. But I remember I had 0 loafs, and these 2 linebackers behind me who I'm literally fighting, he had 33 and he had 21. I'm like, bro, I just did 54 up downs for y'all, and I'm fighting the whole time. So it helped. The crazy thing about that story is we literally went from doing up downs right in the inside hole, which is set 9 on 7, And our running back, we had a really good running back. They handed him the ball. I lit him up right in front of Ed Orgeron. At this time, Ed Orgeron was with USC, and they liked smaller D linemen because Mike Patterson was there. And at the time, it was like right at 6 feet. So right in front of Ed Orgeron, I mean, boom, like, you know what I'm saying? I get up and literally, kid y'all not, like, I'm out the next. I was so mad. I'm out the next series because I can't, like, they giving me water. Like, I'm trying to, like, and I was so mad. But anyway, that unselfishness helps because, like, they say there's two types of people that are like two types of fighters. There's people that will just fight you and people who are protectors. And I'm more of a protector fighter. And so that nose guard helped me with that. I used to play O-line too. And it helps me in my role now because I care about people. Like, what can I do to help people? Like, I'm okay to kind of take an L to help people or take the beat up, whatever, take the double team, for lack of a better word, to help others. So that I'm glad you said that. Like, that just kind of like the profile of who I've been my entire life, especially in the sports business.
Love it. All right, man. So let's kind of jump over, man. So, you know, you went through your college days, man, and then, I mean, you stayed on. So kind of just through your career, you know, you were going in the school for these kind of things like, hey, want to be a coach, want to be an agent, getting that sports marketing. But I mean, you ultimately found your way in what your passion is and what we're really going to dig into, the player development, player engagement kind of roles. And that started off early right there with your alma mater, right? And I mean, you've done that for the last couple of, you know, you've done it a lot in college. So we'll get into that. But so, you know, just not to glaze over it, but because more I want to get into all the things that you're doing now. But like, you know, at Baylor, right? At Kansas with Les Miles, you know, and then, you know, starting it all off at Houston, you know, do you think that all colleges should have that role like the NFL, or do they? Like, because I'm not familiar with it. I know NFL, it's really important. Like, every of the 32 teams have that function in one way or another. Do all the colleges, do you know, or a majority? Let's just talk about the Power Five or Division One. Do you know that?
Yeah, so I know the numbers. So I'm geek out on numbers. I did a deal from when I was in it in 2016 to last year. Every year I kind of do a growth deal. And the NFL has a CBA, right? So the CBA says every single person must have at least one director of player engagement. There's some programs, and it's kind of like, man, I guess university NFL is the same. So if your owner prides in it or your general manager, you might have 4 people. I know some people that have 4 people in it. Some people have 1. Power 5, most everybody has it because I found this out at the University of Kansas. So when I got to the University of Kansas, they kept talking about how much money they're putting in to football to kind of get us towards the middle of the pack in the Big 12. So what they do is they show support staff positions. So Texas has 71, Oklahoma has 68, and Kansas had 27. So to get to that point, a coach who says, I want to compete, they'll just, whatever I look at Texas, okay, Texas has a director of player development, Texas has a director of player personnel, Texas has this. All right, cool. Give me them 20 positions so I get to 47 and get to the middle of the pack. So every Power 5 school literally has a director of player development. Now, with that said, the function in player development is different. And I'll talk about that later. That's why I'm so passionate about the space, because that person could be a coach in waiting. That person could be a holdover spot, academic spot. But every school has the position at the Power 5 level, and it's really growing to the Group of 5 level. So I probably get a call or text every week about the position. Like, do you know somebody, right? So it's growing in the Group of 5 level. What's starting to happen at the Power 5 level is people are starting to double up. So people are starting to get player development staffs. Clemson has like 6. Georgia has 4. Florida has 4. I know they're hiring right now. There's a few schools that are kind of getting it going with staffs. But yes, to answer your question, all Power 5s have one, and most Group of 5s are getting close to having one, if not having one.
Pretty cool. And then you said you were kind of the recruiting coordinator in the high school level. And I know we'll talk about how NILs kind of changed space even at that point a little later. But did that kind of transition into the player development role into college?
Absolutely. So that's how I got hired at the University of Houston. We had 3 guys that were committed to University of Houston at the time. And because I was recruiting coordinator, like, part of it, I tell people, you got to be strategic where you're at to get to where you want to get to. That sophomore class I started with was loaded. We had about 14 college football players, about 7 that could play at Division I level. So I told y'all my school was loaded. So we became a school that you had to stop by. So over the span of 3 years, I met about 400 coaches. We had about 400 to 500 visits from colleges. And so you get the Texas A&Ms are coming in, the TCUs, the Texases, the Michigans. You're getting to learn all these people. So it helped me because I was building relationships there. But the biggest thing I didn't realize what was happening was they were seeing the relationships I had with the players. I can call a player down. They were watching me at practice. They were watching me in the weight room. They were watching how I could bring guys in and, hey, tell them about this, that. So Tom Herman saw it. And what happened was I'm literally in the office with my head coach, and I got like our recruit deal. I'm like, hey, Coach Herman, these are our guys, and we got blah, 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 blah. We don't, and I was very honest. So we don't have anybody in the next class, but the class after that, we got some guys for. He said, that's awesome, and that's all good. He's like, I want to interview you. And I was like, oh, okay. And so we went in a room, and he basically said, he was like, I saw the way you handled it with the players. We're okay. They can go play wherever they want to. He said, the thing is, we like you, and other kids at other schools talk about you. And so we want that in our program. So it helped. It helped. So shout out to everybody in the H. That's one thing about the H. If you're good at something in the H, man, people in the H gonna let other people in the H know.
So you mentioned, because I don't know which way I want to go with this. Let's stick with this. What is your definition of player development, player engagement, right? And this is a two-part question. So I want you to start with the definition. And then something you brought up where like it is different on, MH and I have kind of talked about this as far as how different organizations as far as football are structured differently. How do you make that become like a synonymous, like where there's at least some baseline that's the same, right? Like, yeah, there's going to be some different needs at different schools, but the baseline of what player engagement or player development should be this. So start with the definition and then kind of give me where do you think or how can you get it to where it's that baseline across?
Absolutely. So the definition, I had to define it. So when I was writing my first book, I was like, I need to define this. It's the enhancement of the student athlete experience through holistic and intentional, it could be initiatives, programming, different things like that. But it's all we're doing is we're enhancing their life, right? Because they're going to come to this university, they're going to get great education, they're going to be coached by some incredible individuals, they're going to have great experiences. But how do we enhance their life outside of just being an athlete? Outside of even in some cases just being a student, right? Because you can say, okay, we take care of them as a student. We need to enhance their lives overall as people. And so that's the
definition as pro, right? So enhancing their life outside of their sport, right? Okay.
Correct. And so what I'm trying to do with like the conference I held, which I know we'll talk about, and even the second book. So I was like, all right, this is the book. And then when I wrote the second book, it was more kind of like I'll just keep it. Let's keep it. Hey, look, here we are. We're Black in Sports. I'm keeping it 100. It was more a letter to my last institution I worked at because I got let go. I got let go by the coach who was there. And instead of being mad at him, I was like, let me write this because maybe he did not know what he thought he wanted in player development. So I wrote the head coach's guide to player development that lays out this is what player development is. And so, there's some head coaches that got it. I had an opportunity to go talk at the NCAA NFL coaches academy about it. So getting coaches to understand this is what the position is, right? Because it actually can help your program. It can help you win. I don't have stats on that, but I could tell you let me preface this. If everything else is good, if coaching is good and the structure is good in the program, this can help enhance, and so getting that. So just really targeting coaches, targeting ADs, just a lot of education. So one thing I'm doing when I pick up my podcast for season 4, it's a lot of educational stuff. A lot of what is this? How do you do this? This is how it works. How do you handle this? Because coaches just don't know, right? Because they go off of, this is somebody just hire a director of player development. But this is the crazy thing about it, EJ, is I get it all the time. I get a text message where coaches are now starting to say this, and this is good for this industry and anybody who wants to get in it that listens. We want somebody who just wants to do this. We don't want a coach. We don't want somebody who wants to recruit. We want somebody who wants to do this. That's awesome. But coach, what do you want them to do? I talked to another guy. His head coach told him, literally, this is what he told him. Hey, take care of the guys, make sure they don't get in trouble. That is broad. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like and so helping coaches define that. Because I think it's one thing Tony Dungy said. He was like and he talked about, when he's talking about the diversity of hires, he said the big reason a lot of these outside of biases, right? A reason a lot of these hires don't happen is because owners don't know what they want. So they all say, let's go get the next offensive coordinator. Let's go get this sexy coach here. But they don't know what they want in a leader. And he talks about the Steelers. The Steelers knew what they wanted in a leader. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. And so when they met Mike Tomlin, they knew what they wanted, and it was a wrap. Because there's a story about Mike Tomlin and with the Dolphins, he had an interview with the Dolphins and he crushed it and they weren't prepared for it. And Cam Cameron didn't have a good interview, but they say Cam Cameron, they brought him in for a second interview just to justify hiring over Mike Tomlin because they weren't prepared for what they wanted. Now, that's what I've heard. I can't confirm or deny. Cam Cameron, if you got a program you want to bring me in and talk about player development, let's make it happen. But that's the thing, right? So it's helping coaches because they're starting to realize, all right, man, I can't hire a coach because a coach ain't going to do what I need him to do. But helping them understand what they can get out of the position.
So when you're formulating programs and establishing the needs at the universities or pro level, wherever you're at, is that just kind of communication with the general manager or a head coach? Like, there's no like kind of definition of, hey, this is what we need. A lot of times it's not in place. So what's the process in developing those programs?
Pain points. So I'm asking questions like, hey, during the off season, what are some of the biggest problems that y'all keep tripping over? And they may say this, and this. All right, cool. Then I take it and say, okay, that's a problem. This is a transition problem. Or they say our newcomers, they don't get it. Okay, maybe the newcomer orientation it needs to be more in depth. Or they may say, during the season, our red shirts, we have a problem with our red shirts, understanding that they're not the man on campus and then they all want to get in the portal. Okay, maybe there needs to be a red shirt development. Maybe you need to get them all together and develop them and show them that they're important to the program and take them out to dinner or this, And so I'm listening to pain points because if I tell them, hey, coach or general manager or AD or whoever, right, what's going on in the program, they're going to say the same thing. We got to get these guys to focus. We got to get these guys to play hard. We got to get these. And so I just break it down from there. And then you break it in. So I see football as three sections of the year. You got winter. I would call it. So if we're going from January, I call that winter conditioning / spring football, right? And then the summer, that's more my programming and transitional. And then you got August down, which is season, postseason. So I'm going to ask the questions in those three areas, and that's going to tell me what they really need. Because I don't want to sell them on something that's not going to work. I need it, whatever. If the hardest thing for them is guys paying attention, then I'm going to talk to them about, I got people and sources, but we're going to talk about, hey, do y'all understand Gen Z? Do you understand these? Do you understand? Like, it's more understanding, but it's finding their pain points. They'll tell you too. And they're not going to tell you when they answer the question. You just have to listen to them talk.
And it'll come out naturally, man.
Yeah. So,
for instance, go ahead.
Sorry. So, for instance, let's say I'm sitting here with EJMH, and we're talking, and he gets his phone, and he's like, man, this again. So I say, well, what is, if you don't mind me asking, what is this again? Well, the communication between academics and our play, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, taking notes all the time. So, yeah.
I love it.
No, you got to have a plan, man, to attack it, right? And then be solution driven. So a lot of things, right? And I want to hit these quick, because I don't want to miss, anything down the line. But so you hit on one, MH hit on another. So encompassing in this role, right? So in your player engagement role, NIL is really big. So like I know I can't keep you to a short answer on that, but as brief as possible. Like what is the outcome and how much is player development involved in that role, and then also the crisis management part, right? Like when you look at what's going on, we'll definitely say the NBA, but in other sports, you know what I mean? I mean, you worked at Baylor. Baylor had some time with their football program that they ran into issues. What does those two components look like, and how much of that role is kind of ingrained into player development? And I know it depends, but just kind of give me your thoughts on that.
I'll go quick. NIL, I think NIL is the best for a player development person. I think it's the best teaching tool possible, because they're not going to listen to you when you talk about, hey, we're going to learn about financial literacy. But once you talk about them making money and taxes and all that, it's the best tool to help them talk about branding. So I never disliked it because it actually helped me. It was like everything that they didn't want to hear, now they got to hear it.
Great.
And so
okay.
The other thing with that too is just being realistic with NIL. But it comes to player development because everybody else handles it until it gets deep down. It's like everything else, right? All right, he got his. Everybody wants to help him sign the deal. Everybody wants him to get the pictures, whatever. But you're the one who has to remind them, hey, you better get that post out this week, or they're not going to give you your money, Or if something goes down, hey, coach, I'm tired of this, blah, blah, blah. Or reminding them on the road trip, hey, brother, look, I understand you making the NIL money. When we get on this bus Thursday night, that coach ain't trying to see that. So do all your posts, send your posts. Instagram has that's where it comes up, right? So the next part with crisis, I think a lot of people, I learned this from Tom Herman. He said 90% of discipline, and crisis isn't always discipline, but I'll use this. He said 90% of discipline is anticipation. And so you got to know what's going on. I think a lot of people don't want to be honest with some of the kids, what they see happen, right? You don't want to be honest, right? If you create, so like for instance, I'm not going to point out an NBA team, but when you build certain things and you let certain things happen and you allow not only the players, but your co-workers, and you're allowed to put things out on social media, and you kind of have this, it's going to happen, you know, if you don't have certain structures. So like for me, it's like, how are we prepared for this? Like for instance, this is a quick story. This happened at one of my universities. Our players wanted to go to the swim park during fall camp. They saw other people do it. And I went upstairs and I said, hey, they need to go. We need to take them to the swim park. I don't care what we're doing. We need to take them to the swim park. They've been talking about it all week. Nah, we're not going to take them to the swim park. I'm like, all right, I'm telling you, we need to go to the swim park, right? So anyway, coach comes in. Everybody's excited. They think they're going to the swim park. He's like, we're not going to the swim park. And literally, you could suck all the air out that room, right? We go to practice. We had the worst brawl I've seen in a while. And meanwhile, we're in the room. Everybody's frustrated. How did this happen? And I'm like, because you didn't take them to the swim park. They literally told you what they wanted to do. You didn't do it. You had 120 guys who wanted to do one thing. You said no, and you took them out to practice anyway, and you thought a fight wouldn't break out. You better be glad they didn't swing at you. So anyway, 90% of that is anticipation and just being real. Like, guys, we have to listen to them. And it's also listening too. Like, listen to what they're saying. They're going to give you clues. So that's that. You just got to be prepared for everything. So whenever it happens at another school or something happens unfortunate in the league or another sport or whatever, I'm sitting down there. What is our plan for this? How will we handle this? What are our parameters? So, yeah.
Talk about this. I'm a proponent of transition at every level is kind of the same. I mean, we just kind of at different level, but it's all transition.
Right.
In your role, a lot of times I don't personally see the alumni that give back to the current player who give back to the future player. So how do you kind of blend all of those levels together into the whole transition and the development of an athlete?
I think alumni, you brought it up. I think that is the most overlooked part in player development. Honestly, program development. I think with alumni, you have a natural backbone and people that will probably talk bad about you inside your building and not outside the building. And so what we want to do is we want to connect. We want to be honest with our alumni. This is come to practice. Come check us out. Come meet the new coaching staff. Come talk to our players. Like, now you got to balance it too, because some alumni, they can't get out of when they were there, right? And it's like there's a good balance. But you want the current players to know that when they're former players, they have access to the program. Right. And you want them to then say that stuff to recruits, right? So they're like, man, man, so-and-so who won the Thorpe Award back in 91, man, he come by twice a year and say, what's up? Or he comes to the cookout or whatever. It's one thing, because a lot of coaches just, man, this is the biggest thing. I'm going to just say this. Coaches are really insecure. Some of the most insecure people I've ever met in my life. So they get really insecure when former players come in because either they feel like they're not meeting the standard of winning that the former player had, or the former player is going to talk about their coach. And so coaches don't want that in there because they think it seeps into the team, and it doesn't. It's just for a player to see support, right? It's just, man, like when I went to Hightower High School, we didn't have former players. We were part of the first 4 classes. So, like, but it was cool when the class before us came back, right? We didn't have the OGs that played 10 years ago, 20 years ago that was like, hey, man, y'all keep fighting. Y'all keep doing things. So it's good. Like, it's the biggest. That's the one thing I'll give Tom Herman, man. He was like, look, whatever we got to do to get these guys back here, we need to do it. Because I've heard some horror stories when it comes to alumni. But I think, like you said, the transition, because they need to see that you're going to be this former player real soon. Like, it's going to happen like that, So working on that. And then having development available for former players as well. They want to come in and sit through financial literacy, or because they didn't have that. A lot of people didn't have this position when they played. They like, man, we didn't have that position. Right. And so it's like, well, cool. Come check out a workshop. Come check out, see what we do, and let us know what would have helped or can help. So.
And you don't know what network that can tap into, right? Because then they start like, oh, man, I went back. You should, or hey, let's bring that's a great point as well. That's awesome. All right. So, man, Houston raised you. Houston gave you the opportunity. Houston did a lot for you, man. And what's crazy is you developed beyond the field during your days in Houston, man. So, I mean, that's incredible if you think about like a lot of people that, we all have our 9 to 5s, And it's not often you can create something in that 9 to 5 and take that with you. So tell us about how it started, man, because I want to slowly start to transition into the winner's circle and talk about all the amazing things you're doing. But I think that's the kind of like the tipping point. If I'm wrong with that, definitely correct me. But tell us how the start of Beyond the Field started. In,
no, you're right. You're right. I appreciate that. I didn't even think about that. Like, it all started in the H. Man, I love Houston. It's too high, too much traffic. But anyway.
Big ass bugs too. But go ahead.
Yeah, mosquitoes, bro. Them mosquitoes are like birds. So it all started. So it goes back to the marketing background. We talked about that earlier, the business side of sports. So literally, our recruiting director comes in. He says, "Hey, Ed, we want you to talk about player development for the parents." I had never done that, and so I go back to like my marketing background, and I'm thinking, how do you get people to remember who you are, right? And I know there's the law of threes, right? Most people remember things in threes, right? So, like, for instance, y'all's podcast, Black in Sports, right? Beyond the Field, like, people just remember things in threes, right? And so I'm sitting there like, man, I didn't want to just be called the player development guy. Hey, here, we got Ed, the player development guy, because they're not going to remember that, right? They're like, oh, yeah, some big dude, big smile talk to us, whatever. So I just kept writing it. I was like, I got to come up with 3 things, right? And I was like, I wanted to be 3 things. And, beyond the game, no, more than an athlete was out there, blah, 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 blah. I was like, you know what? Beyond the field. Because I want parents, when they leave here and when this recruiting trip, they know, hey, that guy takes care of my son beyond the field. That's all I wanted to do, right? Just put that in their mind. Hey, this is Ed Jones with, beyond the field. And like, oh yeah, that's the guy who talked about whatever. So that's where it started. And then from there, I was like, all right, well, I went back to what Tom Herman told me when I first got the job. He was like, I want you to take care of players, get in the community, and get them summer jobs. So I was like, well, take care of the players. It's called that personal wellness. Get in the community impact, and then summer jobs, they're going to need career development. So that's how Beyond the Field started and kind of rolled from there. But it kind of shout out to the Bauer College of Business at U of H. Always be closing, always be selling. So
ABCs, baby.
ABCs. You already know.
All day. Well, that's what's up. Well, hey, so I just wanted to kind of tease them. We're going to go ahead and get into the winner's circle. But really quick, MH, man, you got them quick hits?
For sure. This is some get to know you questions. First thing that popped to mind. First time, if ever, you've been starstruck.
Ooh. Oh, that's a good one. First, Janet Jackson, Super Bowl in Houston. So at that Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
We didn't see her. Was it before or after?
It was before. So like in high school, we were part of the halftime show. And we didn't see her at practice. She didn't come to any of the practices. So we get to the halftime show, and you're just like, bro, that's Janet Jackson. And I didn't know nothing about what happened till we were running out. And my brother's on the phone. He's called, did you see it? Did you see it? Did you see it? I'm like, what are you talking about? That actually was a really good game. But yeah, that's my answer.
That's what's up.
Barbecue, Texas barbecue or St. Louis barbecue?
Texas. Yeah, we're in Texas. Yeah.
Hold on. What about KC barbecue? You're in that area.
It is good. I will say this. So the difference between Texas to me is Texas, you can eat it right off the grill. I think Kansas City, they put a lot more sauce on it. I'm not a big sauce guy. Like I'll dip in sauce, but I don't want it on top of stuff unless I ask for it. So, but Texas, man, it ain't even close. Brisket, baby, with the hanging brisket, the brisket that leaned over. That's what we talking about.
Basketball right now. So give me your top 5 starting all-time Houston Rockets.
Oh, that's easy. So Hakeem, my favorite player ever, best Rocket ever, Hakeem Olajuwon. So let me go 1 to 5. So Calvin Murphy at the point guard, Clyde Drexler at the 2. I'm gonna go with the small forward. He don't really get a lot of love, but I think he was an all-star before it all happened. Was Rudy T. Rudy T wasn't a bad player, but you can go with I'll put James Harden there. I'm not James Harden. James Harden at small forward. Elvin Hayes at power, and then Akeem at center. My top 5.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay. This is not part of the quickest. I just kind of want to know, like, what's your thoughts on the Houston Rockets now with the new coach and where they're going? What's your thought there?
I'm glad they didn't miss it, man. I'm glad. I was like, y'all gotta hire him, man. Like, y'all have to. They are really, really young. I hope they get a veteran. I know a lot of people feel a certain way about Dylan Brooks, but I don't think he wouldn't be bad. I kind of like him with the Rockets. It's kind of like that edge. In Houston, they'll calm him down in the age, trust me. But like that edge, like they got some good talent. But I would like to see a couple veterans just kind of help mold that team. But they're young, man. They are young. But I really like the coach Udoka. Love that hire.
Okay, Mike Jones, Slim Thug, or Paul Wall? Who got the coldest verse on Still Tippin'?
Oh, why you do me like that, man? That is like literally we would have this debate with them because they would come to practice, all of them except for Mike Jones, like Slim Thug and Paul Wall is like the biggest kid. And like he would come to practice and we'd be like, Paul, get off the field, man. We come in, he would just pick up the football and run it like, but to me it's Slim Thug, man.
I'm with you.
Still tipping on, but like I repped it, like they all good, but Slim Thug, every time they come on, let's go. So
cold. All right, that's a wrap for me, EJ.
That's what's up, man. I love that. I love that quick hits. All right, so kind of in the transition, man. I'm going to jump really quick because I think it's important. Mm-hmm. You really shared a vulnerable moment, and like I love that. Also, you kept it real on Black in Sports. We always appreciate that. Right. We're talking about where that book came from, letting your past employer know. That's dope too. But in that, like, and I'm not sure if it was from that job or from another one, you had a period of unemployment, you know, where you were looking from your last job to your next opportunity. And you actually did a podcast while you were unemployed, talking about the 10 things you learned, right? And I think, one, that's amazing to do while you're unemployed, right? So I went through about where, you know, and MH knows this, I was unemployed for 2+ years, right? So I couldn't imagine kind of being able to be that vulnerable because I was going through all of the things and your 10 steps. So I just want to, commend you. If you want to say anything on that, or we could just tease the people so they go back and listen to that podcast. But no, I think that was tough. And I think one of the two things that really connected with me is the faith and the value, right? Because you were forced to have faith that like God is going to prepare you and open up a greater and a better door for you when you just left something that you thought maybe was the best thing for you at that time, right? And then your value, right? Like take your value and 10x that motherfucker. So
straight up.
Those are the two things that resonate, but I think there was a couple other things that you did, but I just want to commend you for doing that because it's really hard to kind of go through that because a lot of us, our job or what we're doing kind of is who we are as stature. So it's hard to kind of go through that.
I definitely don't mind talking about it, man. It was tough, man. It was 8 months where when it happened, man, I'll never forget when it happened. It was so we had signing day, and it was the day after signing day. And this is the crazy part, but I'll tell y'all, I had to turn in all this stuff. So some of our coaches went to Texas Tech. Our head coach took a job, so he took some staff with him. And at the time, I wasn't doing the player development stuff, just keeping it a buck. Like I really like our head coach would have player development meetings. He wouldn't invite me to them. Like it was weird. I brought it up. I was like, "Hey, coach, you hired me." He's like, "Nah, you don't need to be in those meetings." And so Texas Tech was like, "Hey, man, we want to bring you to do recruiting." And I was like, "Well, I don't want to do recruiting." And I was like, "If I'm not going to do what I want to do, I might as well stay here to move my family, right?" Because I thought I was good, even though they weren't letting me do what I was doing because they kept giving me big stuff to do. Like that was a big thing. I wasn't sitting there and not do it. They were like, "Hey, we trust you with this, right?" So the day I had to turn everything in, they fired me at like 8 o'clock that morning. I remember thinking like, he brought me in and said, "Hey, you did an incredible job. You connected with the players, but you didn't connect with the staff," which I thought was weird because I had great relationships with everybody. But he was like, "Yeah, man, if you need me to call anybody, I would tell them that you're good at what you do. You have a great attitude." I was like, if I was you, I wouldn't call nobody because they'd be looking at you like, "Man, you stupid. Like, why you let this dude go? Like, if you're doing the work, right?" But anyway, I called my wife. I let her know. Man, I left. I knew it was going to come because I kind of could tell, like when I talk about the insecurities, what I learned in that deal is there's an ego coach and there's an insecure coach. And I'd rather work before an ego coach because an ego coach, you make him look good. So he's like, "Yeah, I'm keeping you around because you make me look good." An insecure coach, they'll get you out because you make them look bad. You're not even purposely trying to do it. You're just trying to do your job, right?
That's right.
So I learned that. I learned that. So anyway, as I went through that, man, I found out during the process that they lied on me. That was interesting. That one brought me to tears in the interview, like close to tears, because I knew the head coach I was interviewing with. And he's like, "Man, I'm hearing stuff that I didn't know about you." And it brought me to tears because I thought about, like, close to tears because I thought about how my parents raised me. They lied on the two things that my parents raised me. My parents raised me, and MH, you brought this up, right? They said I was all about myself, but I've never been that. I had brothers and sisters. I was always about somebody else, and they always said I didn't finish nothing. I couldn't start anything that I finished. And that was like, bro, y'all still doing programming that I created. To this day, they still doing stuff that I created. So that was kind of frustrating. So I also noticed, and let's be, like, being a black man that gets fired for nothing, nobody can take that, right? So I talked to the university, they're on the phone and they're like, hey, we heard that basically there was a dude who got you fired because he didn't want you around. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you literally did your job. And I'm like, yeah. All right, we'll call you back. People can't, if you're a black man, you can't not get fired just to get fired. Like, you had to do something, right? And so, like, one instance, this guy from the Lions, he was like, hey, man, the school going to reach out to you. They're going to call you. And I told him on the phone, I said, they're not going to call me. He was like, no, they're going to call you. I said, they're not going to call me because they connected to this dude. This dude who got me fired is connected around the game because of his last name. And he's just not a good dude, right? I don't wish no ill will on him, but, like, it is what it is. He's not a good dude. He lied on me. I saw him lie on a lot of people, just lied. And I don't even understand why, because the dude going to have a job for the rest of his life. His kids always going to have a job because he's got a Hall of Fame name, right? But anyway, I just went through that and I was like, man, but what about me? Like, it was tough because even to this day, since working at Kansas, I still struggle finding work that, like, gets all of the stuff, all my skill, right? Yeah. And so it was tough, but I had to do it. I felt like I had to do it. Like, I felt like, man, I know this happens to a lot of people. Man, I was shocked at how many messages I got from people saying, thank you, bro. Like, thank you for doing that. Now, did it keep me from probably getting hired? Absolutely. But my thing is, like, if you wasn't going to hire me because I was real about what I learned from not being, then I don't need to be there anyway. So
facts, super facts. Well, man, I definitely just wanted to kind of commend you on that, man, for real. So, all right, man. So in this winner's circle, right? Like, that was a part of building you and making who you are. But let's talk about this conference that you just put on in May, man. That had to be a huge and an exciting win, right? Because the biggest thing in life a lot of times is we just don't start. You know, we're afraid and we don't know the answers to all the questions. And, people don't understand that just starting, just doing it is a success, right? So getting it done. So just past May, we were definitely working on getting you on before May, but I think it's just great that we got you on now, just so you could tell us, you put on a player development conference. So tell us why that was important and why you modeled it, and just maybe a quick one or two highlights of the event.
Yeah, it was important because everybody been asked for it. We ever had that space. Like I said earlier, we're defining the space and people that are doing it the way I feel like it should be done. We wanted to get it. And so I was like, you know what, let's do it virtual, 2 days. And I kind of I designed it so that people who want to get in the space, people that want to get in space, and people who are in the space can be developed. And so it ended up being pretty well. I just took a lot of questions that I get from people. I was like, let me make panels. So, like, a lot of people ask, how do you get into player development? But nobody asks about your first year in player development. So I did the first year in player development. People want to know what's the difference between professional and college. So we did a panel on that. Of course, people want to know about NIL. People want to know, I wanted to know what it's like to work on a player development staff. I never had that. So we did a panel about working on the staff. And so it was just helping a lot of people. There's a lot of different things, career development, crisis planning, which you talked about, we did. I just really wanted it to structure it to develop, because I didn't want it to be, there's a lot of conferences you go to where there's a lot of philosophical stuff, where people are like, like, you go watch a football coach and they'll be like, yeah, on third down, we do this because we have really good players. Like, no, y'all got a scheme. What do y'all do to stop people on third down? And so I wanted that to be the conference, like, actually people get something out of it to say, oh, wow. And the panelists did an incredible job. Shout out to the panelists. Shout out to my team that helped with that on. Evan Norman, Lauren King, Ali Jawai, shout out to them. The panelists, they didn't say any secret sauce. So, yeah, it was really good.
Love it, man.
Two highlights. Over 100 attendees for the first one, which was incredible. And two of our panelists, Dr. Lacey Carmen Johnson was in Toronto, Canada. Three of our panelists were international. Excuse me. Dr. Lacey Carmen Johnson was in Toronto, Canada. Lamont Winston was in London, England. And shout out to Ira Childress, who was in Dakar, Senegal on a mission trip with LSU football, who said, man, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be on this thing. So shout out to them.
Two-part question with the conference for sure. One, what is a common trait, or maybe two traits that was common with all the panelists?
Yeah.
And then number two, what's next year look like for the conference?
Yeah. So a common trait is it's not linear. Like, all your experiences help you for the role, because I think in 5 years, player development will be linear, where you can get a GA position and then a coordinator, manager, and you can do that, right? But that's not happening right now. So everybody had different experience, and I wanted people to hear that, right? Because people would be like, how'd you get in player development? I was like, I don't know. I was a high school coach, right? And then the other thing was relationships. So linear, being player development is not linear. Every experience is good. And then relationships, I tell people all the time, there's like, what's the biggest skill I need? You have to build relationships with the players, with the staff, with external people, with parents. It's all about relationship building. And then next year, oh man, hold on, sorry. Next year's gonna look different because that Saturday was, man, we went from 9 to 3, and man, my stomach was like, I'm about to eat this spine real quick. Next year we're gonna break it into 3 days. So we'll start on Thursday, and then we'll do Friday. Friday will be pro sports, and then Saturday will be collegiate sports. So adding more people. Like I met somebody from tennis, player development. I'm meeting people like it's crazy now that I've had it, all the people I'm connected with. So trying to break it down to 3s where we have a professional sports aspect, a college aspect, and giving people more breaks in between.
I love it, man. And then, I mean, just more development. You kind of hint on it, and I want to make sure it is the same thing. So you've written a couple books, and now you're kind of going into the player development guide, the course. So you said that you're going to spark up, excuse me, your podcast is going to be more into that like tutorial, educational. And then now, you're kind of coming up with this course guide. So tell us about that. That's dropping later this month, right? Sometime this month you're getting it going, right?
Yeah, so that'll be July. Actually, my phone is buzzing because some of the people that want to get in the course, I'm doing an interview to make sure that it's the right thing for them. I don't want anybody to spend money and then this was good for me. But it'll kick off in July, and it's just what I'm learning is people want to be educated about the space. And it goes back to when I was in it, man. That first day, I cannot make this up. My first day on the job, I'm literally walking down the hallway. I went to the restroom. I don't know where my office is. Tom Herman's like, Ed Jones, where you at? I'm like, right here, coach. He's like, so-and-so, your office now. Like literally that's opening kickoff. Like, and I'm like, I'm walking with old buddy and I'm like, hey, let's go find my office. I don't know who you are. So like helping people to have a foundation, like that's big for me, like educating people on this space. I think I've learned looking at it, being more of a businessman, that most of the people who support, pay for things are people that want to know about getting into the position. So I want to spend time helping them do that.
And this may be a teaser from the course, but I'm taking notes the whole time you're talking. This is super dope. How do you take like, I guess an event, so to speak? Hey, we're doing this on this day. And how do you develop that into a program, if that makes sense?
So you start off the calendar. That's another thing everybody talks about, the good old calendar, man. That is the most guarded thing in any organization. Like you got to get on the calendar, man. Like it's crazy, right? If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't work. So for instance, I would just get on the calendar and say, hey, we're going to do summer programming, a 5-series summer programming, right? I just get it on the calendar, right? And we're going to talk about this, and that. So I get it there so everybody sees it. And then from there, I start breaking down. I start going through speakers. Do we need speakers? Who's going to be really good to engage these guys? These guys don't want to be here, first of all. And then food gets them there. What food are we going to get? So it kind of goes from like it's almost like, the food diagrams they would show us in the triangle. So the base is like get on the calendar, then the topic, then the meat of it, then like all the way to the top is like graphics, right? But it's that's kind of how, hopefully that answers your question. But you come with the thought first, get it on the calendar, make sure the head coach understands, because he is not, or him or the ops person, the chief of staff, make sure they understand what you want. And what I've learned is don't give them too much about it. Just give them what they understand. This would be really good for recruiting. Like when I worked for Les Miles, once I found this out, it was a wrap. Les Miles loves recruiting. So every time I had, hey, coach, we're going to Black Student Athlete Summit. So tell me why you're going there. Because it'd be good for recruiting, coach. Parents to get there, moms love it. Do it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, coach, we're going to Kansas City to do an externship at this commercial real estate. So why are we doing it? It's a former player, be good for recruiting. Do it. So you got that's how I did it. So yeah.
That's what's up. So I want to ask you this question. It's more of, I think, like a personal question, right? So you wanted to be a coach, right? Like, so that was one of the paths that you were going down. And then even doing what you're doing, I believe it's coaching in some form. Does this kind of fulfill that kind of coaching bug that you have? Like, do you feel some of that? Or do you ever want to get into coaching or back into coaching at any point?
I didn't think it would feel. The only 2 times, people ask me this all the time, the 2 times where the coaching bug bites me is the first day of spring and the first day of fall camp. And when they're running out there, that's the only time. That's it. It bites me. I'm like, man, like everybody got their position group. But I thought about this.
Not just coaching. You think you got 1 or 2 plays and you still.
Man, look, man, I'm telling you, I had to stretch up, man. They'd be like, hey, we need a scout receiver. I got you. Hey, I'm right here, ref. So, but it was crazy because at Kansas, I kind of thought to myself one time, I was like, man, I'm pretty much the head coach off the field. And so I was going to Les Miles has his weekly radio show and they wanted me to come. And he literally looked at me And he's like, Ed Jones is here. Let me tell you about Ed Jones. He is literally the head coach off the field. Like, we had never talked about it. It was crazy. He was like, Ed Jones knows more stuff than I do. I was like, I honestly do. But as far as the team, I enjoyed it because if I coach, I would only have a room. So the room would be, 10, maybe 10 guys, right? But we do a player development. I get not only the 120 that are on the team, I get the former players, and I get the 80 or so that we're recruiting. And so you get to build all these relationships that really help with the program. So I'm good. I'm good. Like, I do miss running. I think have a little less weight on me because when I was a coach, I used to run everywhere. But outside of that, no, I'm good. The whistle's gone. It's hung up somewhere. It's got dust somewhere, but it's not going to be blown anytime soon.
You talked about ego coaches and insecure head coaches. I thought it was beautiful, but I think it almost probably applies to players too. So, how do you, I guess, break down and get them enough to be humble enough to, feed into what you're feeding them? Yeah.
So ego guys. We had one guy, he came in, and it was funny. I was actually reading. So they print out the stats of the conference, and he was like, man, coach, I did my thing. You know what I'm saying? Boys, they ain't see me out here. I said, man, that's kind of crazy because, man, speaking of boys not seeing you, I don't see you on this conference stat sheet. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to dig you, but you got more work to do. And he understood it, right? And then the insecure guys, the guys that come in like, hey, man, that freshman trying to outshow me. He trying to blah, 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 blah. Man, I don't like him. You really, have you noticed that he follows you wherever you go? You notice that he watches your every step. You notice that he's a little you, a mini you. So if you want to be great, the more great you're going to be, the more he's going to be. So you need to step it up because he's just literally following you. So you got to find that balance of people because you don't want ego guys, man, but they get it going, man. It's something about them. It's hard to get them the truth. Like, shout out to one of my guys. I don't know if y'all know Chandler Smith. He's big on big on social media. And I tried to he was a 5'5" running back. And his confidence was out of this world. And I was just like, man, and it wasn't a bad ego. He just was so confident. I just I want you to know what this experience is going to be. They about to put you as a scout running back. You're going to have to literally get it out the mud. And he literally had to because his first practice in pads, Ed Oliver literally picked him up and threw him in mud. And so Ed Oliver with the Bills, first round pick.
Yeah.
But he kept going. And then it switched to where as he started getting exposure, he started getting insecure in his ability. And then I had to come back and build him up. And so that's interesting too. You can kind of see that switch where they can go from ego to insecure to ego. You just have to keep them like you said, or keep them in the middle. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So did see one thing, man. I didn't know if it was active or where you are with it, man, but that Read by Ed, man, what's going on with that, man? I like that spark. It was funny because I've talked about doing a book club. It's always good to kind of see what other people are reading, but you don't want the Amazon or the other kind of, because they're looking to push a book. I want someone else that was real that read it and saying like, okay, does this apply to me? Should I pick that book up, man? So Read by Ed, man, talk to us about it.
So really excited about that. I got a book. My next one, this is why I'm so excited about June. The conference took up May. I'm proud of myself because in May I said, you know what, let me stop doing too much, right?
Right.
What I found out was in high school, I got laughed at. I was teaching freshmen, and they asked me what my hobbies were. I was like, I just like football. I like watching film. And this girl in the class, she's like, man, you whack, man. And I was just like, it just kind of hurt. Like, I was like, dang, I really don't have no hobbies. And so,
but teenagers can hurt your soul, man, by the way.
She was like, she is literally whatever y'all think she looked like is what she looked like. She's like, man, you whack, this old whack ass, whatever. Like, oh, all right, chill out now. I still will fail you. But read it. So right now, reading Story Brand, building a Story Brand, which is really good. I had it from the library, but I bought my own copy, and I'm YouTube secrets. Like, I'm just reading a lot of stuff, like a lot of different stuff. I'm actually, speaking of book club, this is crazy. Shout out to my guy, Drew Davis, who used to be the director of player development at UCLA. I'm helping this book club. We're reading Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. I put it at the local library. Shout out to public libraries. I got to go pick it up. It's on hold up. But just getting back to reading, man, it really helps me, my brain. Like, reading and writing is like going back to who I was as a kid. I think so many times with football, that was one of the things I really, really learned coming out of, like, the pandemic helped me. And then when I got fired, it helped me, like, get back to who am I? Like, I went all the way back to find out what my favorite color is, my favorite fonts are. But yeah, the Read by Ed, man, I'm just trying to give somebody 60 seconds of the book. People ain't trying to sit there for 2 minutes, man. People got 60 seconds. I'm trying to give them 3 takeaways. I used to do like 6-minute videos. Ain't nobody watching them, man. So I'm learning to condense. I got 3 takeaways here. My 3 takeaways of blah, 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 blah. Go get your copy. So yeah.
That's dope. Read, kids. Reading is fundamental.
I'm telling you, I see why.
Or at least audiobook.
Yeah, I see. Some people, I can do. It's crazy because I do podcasts, but I can't do audiobook. I can't because it's too much to write. I'm stopping it. It's crazy, man. The more and more you read, the more and more you see why people didn't want our people to learn how to read.
Hey, Jada Kiss, want to keep something from it? Put them in the book.
Yep, put in the book. Yep.
MH?
You touched on a little bit about what you see the future of player development in this career path of how it can be linear, in the next 5 years. I do wonder with NIL and I guess player mobility, where I guess the relationship with players is the window is a little smaller just with time because they can, go other places a little easier. And that's obviously in the professional game. How do you see that impacting the player development role?
I think you brought it up. You'll get a lot more insight from people at the pro level because they deal with transactions so much. Like people, because like 3 years ago, somebody worked for the Bills was like, man, I would love to be in your role because you actually get to see people 3 to 4 years. Well, that's not true anymore. He's like, people leave, but I still think it's important because I know for a fact, like everybody talks about recruiting, right? They'll say recruiting is the lifeblood of each team. And I think right now retention is the lifeblood of each team. Because you honestly, in a sense, don't have to recruit if you got NIL squared away. If you got a company, whatever, and they're doing it, you don't have to recruit in a sense, but you got to retain these people. And so no matter what it is, the relationship, that person or those people in the role might keep a kid in the school for 3 years. That might be max. 3 years might be max, but that's better than nothing, right? And so I think it's still valuable because I think a lot of kids, here's the thing, we both know this. Too many kids jump in the transfer portal, right? I'm not against the transfer portal. I'm not. But there are too many kids jumping in there. And so I think that if you have people who are building in who may say, hey, I know it's hard right now. I know you was the dude, you was the man, blah, blah, blah. But just keep fighting, keep fighting. Now, there's different situations, right? My homeboy always tell me, man, Joe Burrow quit on he couldn't compete. Nah, he saw that room. He knew what was up. He looked, he saw JT Barrett, Cardell Jones, Braxton Miller. You got to be smart. So I don't think it's that. But I think everybody's situation is not that. Like everybody's situation is not that. But I think also player development helps in the recruiting aspect because you're having honest conversations. So I would have honest conversations. My coach probably hated it, but I would tell kids, actually look at this program. Don't get caught up in the jerseys, what you're going to eat. Everybody's doing that. Look at what you're going to get as a person in each program. So even though the transfer portal stuff is not going to decrease, I still think there's a lot of value in the role because I think it can help retain players on the team.
Like it. All right, so we're getting to the end, man. We're wrapping it up, man. Time flies when you have fun, all that good stuff. So this part of the show we like to call is the assist, or
the hee
dropping that dime, that dizzles. So what is a gem or the assist that you would really drop for either people looking to player development or something you would tell your younger self, but just or maybe even like your life motto, man? Just what is a little words to live by?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say when you invest in people, you invest in yourself. There's no greater return of investment than that to me, honestly. Like every time I've invested in someone, it's come back almost tenfold for me. And if it's that time, if that's whatever it may be. Like for instance, at Kansas, to your MH, to your earlier question, like about programming, we created these groups during 2020. It was a lot going on, and so I wanted the players' voice to be heard. And I was like, I'm gonna sit back, I'm gonna let them get it all out on social media. I'm gonna give them 2 months, and then I'm gonna bring them in and say, okay, what are we gonna do about this, right? And by just letting them, asking them that, I grew exponentially. They was in there dropping dimes. They were like, we need to do this. I was like, man, hold on. I ain't never thought about that. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, they was like, we did 29 programs in 4 months because they were just talking. And so investing that time in them and making sure they were heard helped me overall. So I think investing time in people, it's going to come back. So
there it is.
It's tough because this is a dog-eat-dog world and everybody's like, do you. But I truly believe that.
I like it. So really quick, man, go ahead and drop all of where we can follow you, where we can see you, where the info at, man, just so we can hear it for our visual audience. I mean, for our listeners, man, but definitely kind of drop some of that information.
Okay, look at the ticker. There we go. Okay, yeah. I'm wherever the money resides. No, I'm just playing. Okay, so I keep it, the marketing piece of me, it always goes back to marketing. Everything's pretty much the same. Personally, it's Ed_Jones. Beyond the Field, it's BTF_program. I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's probably my best. Like, man, LinkedIn is like, well, if you're not on LinkedIn, man, you missing out. That's my biggest connector. But that's where you can find me. The website is www.program.com. YouTube channel, the Player Development Pod. So not only, like I said earlier, I have pod episodes, but I'm about to get into educational videos. And so, yeah, that's where you can find me. Just type in Player Development Pod, Player Development Program. Hopefully, I want to get to a point when you type in Player Development, you see this.
There it is.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, MH, man, please hit us with some final thoughts, my man.
Oh, yeah, man. Salute to you, man. This is it's been a big time learning experience for EJ and I, and we appreciate your time and much success in all your future goals and endeavors, man. You're doing it big. You're changing the game, man. So really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Absolutely, man. And you know, this doesn't have to be a one-time thing, man. So always want to have you on the show. Anytime you have something you need to drop, man, let us know how we can be a conduit, man. That's what this is about, man. Giving the people in sports that are making change and making things happen, man. That's all we said, interviewing the best in the game, and you're one of them. So thank you. Want to give you your flowers right now, man. So once again, everyone, thank our guest, man, Ed, you know, bringing in the heat and the fire. He threw some assists. You know, he kept it live for us, man. And we want to thank you, the people, for listening, man. I hope you enjoyed this show and every episode that we drop. You know, we do a new episode every Thursday. So please hit that subscribe bell on that YouTube. Please understand that visual representation is important, man. So if you see it, you can be it. Also, man, subscribe audio anywhere that you listen to podcasts, man. You can say, hey, Alexa, play Black in Sports, and she's right there for you. So please stay safe, practice gratitude, and know we're rooting for you.
Screaming, got sports and entertainment until we even.
Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo. Look. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Spent about 2 racks on handmade new rags. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. That's everybody from sports to college class to rap and back.